plot to take over the world. The Bilderberg Group began its annual gathering today, and for the first time in 15 years, the UK is hosting the event. George Osborne, Ed Balls, Princess Beatrice of Holland, Henry Kissinger, just some of the guests who'll rub shoulders in the unlikely location of Watford. The Bilderberg meetings have been going on now for nearly half a century, and because of the high levels of secrecy, a dedicated band of critics insists there is something decidedly sinister about the whole business. We sent The World Tonight's Paul Moss to hear the concerns of the current generation of protesters.
There were international captains of industry arriving, there were heads of banks and former heads of state. But wherever they came from, all received the same welcome. It's the first time for more than a decade that this elite group has chosen to meet in Britain at the Grove Hotel in Watford. Protesters had always promised an anti-Bilderberg festival, dedicated to exposing what they think this meeting of the world's elite is really about.
They are up there in the hotel, the Bilderberg Group, and they're deciding on future events and future scenarios, this so-called credit crunch and things like that. It's all manufactured. In the last 20 years, you've had an escalation of wars from the Iraq war through to like the 9/11 incident, the Afghan. They have power to do what they want to do.
It's the CEOs of all the heads of everything that involves us in life. You've got the internet stuff, you've got all the banks are here, you've got Henry Kissinger's here. We need to know what's happening, and it's influencing our life.
There are an extraordinary variety of people here. There are the protesters, there are anti-corruption campaigners, there are groups of locals wandering around looking a little bemused, and a table where some Hare Krishnas are serving free meals to everybody. And also here I've got Michael Meacher, the former Labour Cabinet Minister. Mr Meacher, what are you doing here?
Well, I think this is arguably one of the most important meetings in Western capitalism. What will be happening at this conference is intense lobbying. These are very, very powerful people, many of them billionaires, certainly extremely wealthy. They have come here to concert their agendas and to make sure, as far as each of them can, that their own power and interest is preserved.
It was in 1954 that the first Bilderberg Group meeting took place. Organisers said they wanted to build new relationships between Europe and the US by holding a transatlantic powwow for their respective big cheeses. But the group has always prevented any public reporting of these meetings, prompting all sorts of speculation about what they get up to. David Aronovich is the author of Voodoo Histories, an account of conspiracy theories through the ages.
Bilderberg has morphed for some people into a successor of the other archetypes of world domination conspiracies. We go back here to the French Revolution, the idea of the Illuminati. They organised the French Revolution, and a bit later on, they or people like them planned the First World War and the Russian Revolution. So there's a long history of believing that these events were the product of an international group of people, usually involving financiers, quite often involving Jews and so on. Almost every major event that happens in the world is as a consequence of their design.
It's not just history that's been written with the Bilderberg Group in mind. James Bond found his nemesis in the evil international organisation Spectre, and some commentators believe it was modelled on the Bilderberg Group in its alleged shady dealings. The newspaper columnist Matthew Norman has followed the Bilderberg Group through its previous annual meetings at the Spanish Mediterranean resort of Sitges in Washington, D.C. and San Moritz. But this year's choice of venue has left him less certain what the organisation really stands for.
I think if I were a conspiracy theorist, I would be fascinated with the contrast between the shadowy wickedness of this kind of spectre-like organisation, the Bilderberg Group, with its master plans for various forms of world domination, and the choice of the venue, Watford, which perhaps is a sort of byword for suburban dullness and greyness. And I would assume, as a conspiracy theorist, that this was a brilliant diversionary ruse to take our eyes off the wickedness of what's actually being plotted there.
Well, I'm tired of being watched as I walk down the street.
Back at the anti-Bilderberg protest, though, no one seemed in any doubt what the guests were up to. The politicians and business people will be holed up in their Watford hotel for the next 3 days, their opponents promising to remain at the gates.
My name's Lee. I've come here all the way from Telford, Shropshire. I basically come here to say that I'm basically against all the deceit, what they come up with. They decide the policies that are going to be given to the population. They decide when they want to have an oil spill, so they create the oil spill. War is very profitable, so they decide wars when they're going to happen.
Do you ever think you might be exaggerating a bit the power of these people? I mean, the world is a very complicated place. There are lots of centres of power. Do you really think one group of people can control all this?
Well, yes, I do, yeah, because they're very influential. Basically, mate, they're hiding something. They're hiding something very, very sinister.
That intriguing report from Paul Moss. You're listening to The World Tonight with Philippa Thomas.